Most people think life is punishing them, when in reality it's just testing them before the breakthrough they asked for. And that's exactly when almost everyone gives up, 1 minute before everything starts to change. Do you believe in destiny? Jung believed in something else. That life starts confronting you when your unconscious decides it's time to change. And that's when the universe begins to test you. Not as punishment, but as preparation. But if you don't understand this process, you risk giving up, right when everything was about to shift. In this video, you'll clearly understand how the universe tests you before transforming your reality. So watch until the end and make sure you're subscribed, because this video might be the sign you were waiting for. And before we dive in, I want to say a heartfelt thank you. I've noticed the channel has been growing a lot lately, and more new people are showing up around here. I read all your comments, and knowing my videos are impacting so many people in such a positive way truly makes me happy, because that's always been my intention with this content inspired by Carl Jung. I'm really glad you're here, truly. So let's do this. You asked for change. You made plans, nurtured hope, dreamed of a new chapter, and then life stopped. Nothing moves. Things feel stuck, like time itself has frozen. Breathe. Stay calm. Because this is when the universe starts to test you. Not to see if you deserve it, but to be sure that you're ready to handle the new reality you've been asking for. Here's the part no one tells you. Before the shift comes the silence. Before the new comes the void. And that void isn't punishment. It's preparation. There's even a book I really like that talks exactly about this, called The Kybalion, a classic on the 7 Hermetic Principles. It's a dense, layered, and challenging read, but a necessary one, because in it lies a truth that explains exactly what we go through when everything seems to fall apart before it all comes together. One of the most powerful principles is the principle of rhythm. It says everything in life moves like a pendulum. It swings back before it moves forward. What feels like stagnation, pain, or loss is often just the natural motion before expansion. Everything flows in and out. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The movement of the pendulum manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the same as to the left. Rhythm is compensation. What you're living right now might feel like a setback, like you're stuck or being rejected. But maybe it's just the pendulum getting ready to swing the other way. Looking at it from Carl Jung's philosophy, he said the encounter with the self happens when the ego breaks down. And that encounter changes everything. Because the self isn't who you show to the world. It's who you truly are. Beneath the defenses, the fears, the masks. When the ego, that part that tries to control, to please, to protect, starts to crumble, what comes to the surface is something much stronger. Your essence. This is the silent turning point. You stop being controlled by what's happening out there, because now you've found a steady center within. The encounter with the self is the beginning of freedom. And that's why life tests you so much before it happens. Because it wants to know, do you already have the internal structure to live truthfully? Or do you still need the illusion of control to feel safe? And when your life freezes, what's crumbling isn't you. It's the false certainties you use to stay in control. And that's exactly when the universe starts watching. Are you going to resist again? Or this time, will you trust? That's the start of the test. And the test begins by revealing what's still misaligned inside you. Not to punish, but to set you free. The old version of you no longer serves you. But it won't leave quietly. It needs to be exposed. It needs to be confronted. And when you start to realize this, something shifts. You stop seeing the silence as abandonment and start to understand it's just the space between who you were and who you're becoming. This is when the universe starts to move, not outside, but within you. Sometimes, what shows up in your life seems like the exact opposite of what you asked for. You search for love and face distance. You want freedom and feel surrounded by limitations. You hoped for lightness and only find resistance. What's happening is that, before you live something new, life needs to show you what inside of you is still reacting the old way. You can't live a different reality if you're still being triggered by the same things. And that's why the universe, with a wisdom that often stings, gives you exactly what still sets you off. Because what provokes you reveals you. Rejection reveals the fear of abandonment that still hasn't healed. Boundaries reveal the controlling impulse that still has a hold on you. Absence reveals how much you still try to find on the outside what can only be built within. It's like life puts a mirror right in front of you to show how you still react. The universe doesn't care whether you deserve it or not. Or, the real question is, are you still reacting like someone who needs to cling to control, repeat old patterns, try to fix everything in a rush? Or can you now stay calm and true, even in the middle of chaos? This is one of the deepest and most invisible tests. Because it's not about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens. If you stop acting like your old self, the one who panicked, begged for approval, sabotaged everything, something shifts inside. A silent current that used to keep you looping through the same patterns just breaks. And when that happens, even if no one sees it, it's liberating. You might not be able to control what appears on your path, but you can choose who you are when it appears. And it's exactly in that choice that your reality slowly begins to change. Not because the world outside has changed, but because you stopped reacting like someone still trapped in the past. And that shift, even if there's no visible reward yet, is already a milestone. It's already a sign that change has stopped being just an idea and has become an internal state. And that's when something bigger starts to move. You begin to respond differently. You feel that something inside has shifted, but suddenly a pain hits, deep, intense, with no name, like it's coming from your core. And then the doubt creeps in. If I'm evolving, why does it hurt so much? The answer is simple and profound. Because this is also part of the test. The universe isn't punishing you for growing. It's testing whether you've truly grown. Whether the change you asked for is solid within you, or still hanging on to the old. Pain isn't a mistake. It's a thermometer. It shows up to push out the final structures you wouldn't let go of on your own. It's as if life were saying, you want the new? Then you can't keep protecting yourself like you used to. What's crumbling now isn't you. It's what you've already outgrown, but haven't yet had the courage to let fall completely. The confusion, the fear, the emotional collapse aren't signs of failure. They're symptoms of an identity that's dissolving. That old version of you that was always on high alert, trying to control everything, seeking approval, avoiding truth. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." And at this point in the process, acceptance is everything. Accept that it hurts, that it scares you, that it disorients you, but also that it clears you out. Of course, the ego will try to resist. It'll scream that you're losing control. It'll want to retreat to the familiar zone, because the ego doesn't understand that this is a maturity test. It only wants to survive. But what's happening now isn't punishment. It's preparation. You're being refined, not rejected. You're being emptied, not abandoned. Because the new reality you asked for needs space. And there's no space where old structures, stored up emotions, and automatic patterns are still running the show. This pain you're feeling is the final exam, the last step before the breakthrough. It's asking, will you retreat into what's familiar, or keep trusting, even without guarantees? And every time you choose to stay, even in tears, even without understanding, you show the universe you're ready for something greater. Not because you defeated the pain, but because you chose to walk through it. When you start stepping away from your old way of living, that's when the universe turns up the test. Your old self starts to realize it's losing ground, and it begins to scream. It watches how you respond when the old you starts yelling, because it will yell. That old part of you, used to surviving on fear, guilt, and control, won't go quietly. It will fight. It'll use its favorite phrases. You're not enough. This won't last. Better go back to what's safe. And the universe allows this moment not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom. This is one of the most critical tests, because it's the point where many give up, but also where the new begins to solidify. Carl Jung explained that the ego is like a shell. It protected you for a long time, but it isn't you. The real you is behind it, waiting for the ego to quiet down. But the ego doesn't exit gracefully, it makes noise. And that's exactly where real change begins. When the ego loses strength, the shadow appears. That part of you that you hid, rejected, pretended didn't exist. And in that moment, the universe asks, are you ready to stop running from yourself? This isn't a theoretical test. It's practical, lived in everyday life. It's in the situations that tempt you to turn back. In the triggers life hands you to see if you still fall into the same cycles. In the conversations that test you. In the lonely choices. In the decisions only you can make. And this is where you get the real chance to show. I've changed. You recognize the self-sabotaging thought, but you don't feed it. You feel the emotional pain, but you don't run. You sense the urge to retreat, but you breathe and keep going. You become someone who no longer needs the comfort zone to stay whole. That's the sign the universe was waiting for. Because you don't change your reality only when something new arrives. You change your reality when you already live like someone who's ready for the new, even when nothing around you has changed yet. That inner, silent, and courageous response is the message the universe understands. It's the proof that you're ready to move forward. When you begin to respond differently, even without certainty, the universe notices. And that's when it shifts the nature of the test. Now, it no longer wants to know if you can endure the pain of the old. It wants to know if you can hold the energy of the new. Because it's not enough to just wish for a new reality. You need the emotional structure to actually live in it. Think of a glass filled with dirty water. No matter how much you want clean water, if the glass is still full, there's no space for anything new. And more than that, if you can't keep the glass clean afterwards, everything gets polluted again. That's exactly what the universe is watching. It wants to know, can you hold onto your peace even when everything's unstable? Do you treat yourself with respect even when no one else does? Do you stick to your truth even without outside approval? These are invisible, yet profound questions. And your life starts to respond according to your answers. Carl Jung said that true change doesn't happen through the conscious mind alone. It has to involve the unconscious, the body, and the soul. And the universe tests you on all of those levels. It doesn't care if you think differently. It wants to know if you live differently. That's why sometimes, even after so much internal effort, everything still feels slow on the outside. Because the test now is no longer about endurance. It's about stability. Can you keep your frequency high even when no one's clapping for you? Can you stay true to yourself even when the world around you still looks the same? This isn't punishment, it's construction. The universe is calibrating your vibration, it's preparing the field, and it only releases what you're emotionally ready to sustain. Because a new reality doesn't arrive to complete you. It arrives when you've already become someone who can live in it without losing yourself. So if it's hard right now, that doesn't mean it's far. It means the universe is still preparing the ground. And that ground is you. You keep showing up, even without guarantees, even without clear signs that anything is shifting on the outside. And it's right here that one of the most silent and difficult tests appears. The void. You look around, and nothing seems different. The new reality you asked for hasn't shown up. No doors have opened, no confirmation has come, and everything starts to feel unfair. But the universe knows exactly what it's doing. It hides the reward, not to punish you, but to see if you've already found it within. Because if what you're waiting for is still your only source of motivation, then you're still trapped in lack. And that's why it holds back. Carl Jung said the encounter with the self happens when the ego collapses. And the ego, used to depending on applause, results, and guarantees, will try to resist this moment of silence. It'll want to quit, to run, to make up an excuse. But the universe is watching something else. Can you already be who you say you want to be, even without recognition? This is the test of solidity, of integrity, of presence. Can you keep your vibration aligned when no one's watching? Do you act with truth even when there's no audience? Can you stay faithful to what you believe in, even without immediate feedback? Because that's the foundation of your new reality. The outer world only begins to shift when your inner world is clean, steady, whole. Not perfect, but real. And that's why, at this stage, it feels like nothing's happening. When in truth, everything is being rearranged behind the scenes. The universe is giving you a precious gift, not absence, but maturation. This is when you begin to realize that the greatest gift wasn't what you asked for, but who you were becoming while you waited. You discover consistency without validation, clarity without certainty, peace without answers. And that's no small thing, because it's this quiet, grounded version of you that the universe recognizes as ready. Not the one who demands, begs, or pleads, but the one who already lives as if they need no proof. And when you become that person, reality shifts to match you. The waiting continues, and with it, restlessness. You feel like you've already learned, already grown, already done the work, but time keeps passing, and nothing changes on the outside. And that's when the universe brings in one of its most subtle and transformational tests. It wants to see if you'll use this time to panic, or to come home to yourself. Because waiting isn't a void, it's a creative field. Many people give up here, because they think nothing is happening, but something is. What's happening now isn't visible, it's internal, it's refinement. Carl Jung said, One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And this darkness is the space of waiting. It's where you stop chasing and start walking with yourself. At first, you still hope something external will show up. A message, a sign, a clear change. But gradually, you realize it's not about when things happen. It's about who you're becoming while you wait. The universe watches this shift, from anxiety for control to trust in timing, from demanding results to surrendering to the process, from expectation to presence. And this presence is powerful, because it's in that space that you begin to act like someone who already has, even before anything shows up. You treat your energy like it's sacred. You speak with more intention. You walk more slowly. You choose with more awareness. You're no longer reacting to the absence. You're responding to your own truth. That is spiritual maturity. That is real manifestation. The waiting becomes the place where the new starts to breathe, where the reality you asked for begins moving inside you, long before it materializes outside. And that's when the universe understands. Now there's space, there's consistency, there's readiness, because you're no longer waiting for something to come and save you. You're present, knowing deep down what really needed to happen was you finding yourself. And now that it has, time stops being an obstacle. It becomes part of your strength. You keep going, with less anxiety, with more silence. And as invisible as it may seem, it's already making all the difference. This is when the universe starts to respond, not with fireworks, but with subtleties, with synchronicities, with unexpected encounters, with moments of lightness in the middle of chaos. You might not see big external changes yet, but something inside you already knows. I'm not the same person I was when this all began, and that is one of the clearest signs that the universe is about to make a way. Carl Jung said that everything we don't face in the unconscious returns as fate. And now, you're changing precisely because you decided to stop running from what hurt. You felt it, moved through it, stayed. You learned to see yourself even in the dark days. You learned to comfort yourself without needing an audience. You learned to keep going even when no one confirmed you were on the right path. And the universe saw that. It saw every quiet choice. Every time you got back up with no strength left. Every moment you said no to what used to trap you. Every tear that fell when you chose to move forward, even without a single sign. These are the responses life respects the most. Because when you start to change in silence, you begin to emit a new frequency. Clearer, steadier, more whole. And that frequency starts shaping what's coming. You might not have received what you asked for yet, but you've stopped begging. You've stopped chasing. You've stopped self-sabotaging every time things didn't go your way. That shift alone is powerful. And it doesn't matter if no one else noticed. The universe did. And its response doesn't come just when you're ready. It comes when you're already living as if you are. Because the new reality you're waiting for doesn't arrive to transform you. It arrives as a reflection of who you've already become. And now, even without big signs, life begins to conspire differently. Not because it changed on its own, but because you changed first. At this point, something becomes clear. Real transformation doesn't happen when you understand everything with your mind. It happens when your body, your emotions, and your actions begin to move differently, even when your mind is still afraid. Manifestation isn't about thinking positively all the time. It's not just repeating affirmations in the mirror, hoping the world shifts. That's just the beginning. The real leap happens when you start living as the person you wish to become. Carl Jung said you don't become enlightened by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that darkness in you, it's already been touched, felt, faced. You're no longer trying to escape the pain. You're using it as a path. And that completely changes the way you vibrate and what you attract. Because the universe doesn't respond to what you think. It responds to what you sustain. To the energy you carry when no one's watching. To your most intimate frequency, shaped by how you choose to move through the world. Manifestation is existential. It happens when you start inhabiting the version of you that you asked for, even before it's physically real. You act with integrity before the recognition. You offer the love you want to live. You honor your boundaries, even without guarantees. You live as someone who already knows their worth, not someone begging for crumbs. And that doesn't go unnoticed, because the universe understands the language of coherence. It recognizes when your behavior, your energy, and your truth are aligned. And when that happens, what once felt far starts to draw near, not as a sudden miracle, but as an inevitable consequence. You manifest what you are, not just what you want. And when your vibration becomes compatible with the reality you asked for, it arrives. Because there's no more barrier between you and it, only connection. This is the part of the process where many people give up, thinking it's not working. But the truth is, it is. Life is responding. And it responds best not when you're just asking, but when you're embodying. You look back and realize nothing you went through was in vain. Not the silence, not the delays, not the sudden endings. You weren't forgotten. You weren't rejected. You weren't left behind. You were being called, and that call didn't come wrapped in sweet words. It came in the form of pain, of waiting, of trials that almost broke you. But they were there for a greater reason, to awaken a version of you that could only be born under pressure. Carl Jung said, "A life not lived is a disease from which one can die." And the universe knows that. It doesn't want you to merely survive in a small, safe, predictable space. It wants you to live fully. And to live fully requires maturity. That's why it pulled the ground from under you. So you'd find a strength you'd never discover on solid land. It took away the answers. So you'd stop looking outward and start listening inward. It took people away, not as punishment, but so you'd learn not to abandon yourself again. These tests weren't meant to diminish you. They came to align you with who you really are, with what you say you want, with what you're now capable of sustaining. You didn't go through all of this because you were weak. You went through it because you were ready, even if you didn't know it. You kept going. Even afraid, something in you said, "I'll keep going." And that choice to keep going, imperfect, shaky, tear-filled, was seen by life, by you, by the part of you that had been asleep, but finally woke up. The universe doesn't want to give you what your ego desires. It wants to give you what your soul is ready to live. And sometimes that requires delay. It requires silence. It requires letting go of control. You're growing. With every quiet choice, with every day you choose not to lose yourself, with every time you look inward and keep going, even with no certainty. That's real evolution. That's what clears the path for everything that comes next. So if it still hurts today, it doesn't mean you failed. It means it's still happening. The process is still unfolding. But now, with one crucial difference, you are no longer the same person who began it. And that changes everything, because life responds differently to the one who has already changed. None of this was in vain. Not the waiting, not the pain, not the moments when it felt like everything was against you. The universe wasn't destroying you. It was preparing you, refining you, aligning you. You walked through fire, not to be burned, but to burn away what no longer belonged to who you are now. And now you know. Everything that hurt was really showing you the way back to yourself. Every crisis returned a piece of you that had been forgotten. Every loss cleared away something that no longer served. Every silence was a chance to truly hear yourself. Carl Jung said, "The thing you need most will be found where you least want to look." And you had the courage to look, even when it hurt. Even when it felt like no one else could see what you were facing. You went all the way down. You touched the dark. You felt the void. And you didn't give up. And that choice to remain whole while everything around you was falling apart, was the clearest sign that you're ready. Not ready in the sense of being perfect, but in the sense of being whole, honest, aligned. The universe saw it. It saw every quiet decision, every tear held back in the midst of surrender, every "I'll keep going" whispered through fear. You no longer beg for miracles, because now you understand you are the miracle. The new reality doesn't feel like a distant promise anymore. It arrives as the natural consequence of the person you've become. And that person is no longer trying to prove anything. They're living in truth, in presence, in peace. This is the harvest, not just of what you asked for, but of who you became on the inside while you waited. And if you still have any doubt, look at what you've already overcome. Look at who you were when this all began, and who you are now. You walked through fire, and you didn't burn, you shined. And that shine isn't loud, it isn't arrogant, it doesn't need a stage. It's a calm glow from someone who knows nothing was in vain. And so now, what's coming isn't punishment. It's response. It's reflection. It's the harvest. And if you made it this far, drop a comment below. I choose to listen to the signs, not run from them. That phrase is a commitment to yourself, to your truth, to everything that's being born from this moment on. And if this message truly resonated with you, you can support the channel by clicking the thanks button below. That financial support is what allows the channel to keep growing, with more depth, more quality, and more reach. Every contribution makes a difference, and is received with so much gratitude. Thank you for walking this path with me. I'll see you in the next video.